name is Paula and welcome to my first Flosstube. I've been cross-stitching for over 40 years, but for the last 20 or so years, I've been very removed from the cross-stitch community. Up until 20 or so years ago, I was very involved in cross-stitch. I worked for a group of cross-stitch magazines. I was an assistant editor. I wrote their sewing instructions. I wrote articles. I stitched models from time to time. I attended the Spirit of Cross Stitch festivals. I even taught a few classes at the Spirit of Cross Stitch festivals. I attended sampler symposiums. I took week-long classes with different designers. I was seriously involved in cross stitch. It was my passion. What happened? Life happened. Kids, the big one. Kids came along. A couple of big moves came along. Career change came along. Divorce happened. New job, new business. Life happened. Now, it sounds like I didn't do any cross stitch, but that's not totally true. Everywhere I went, I dutifully carried my stash. I carried my books. I carried my projects. I carried my samplers, my finished projects, and I put them on the walls everywhere I went. So the cross stitch was always there, but it wasn't something I was doing actively. And I wasn't really connecting with anybody in the cross stitch world. I had one big project that I was working on that I just finished about 6 months ago, and it took me 25 years. So other than that big project, I did very little. What I did, I stitched from my stash. And yeah, so I was just kind of removed. My brain was elsewhere. My mind was elsewhere. And yeah, but what happened? Well, in the last few years, things have calmed down. Life settled. And my kids went off to college. And all of a sudden, I had more time. And that big project that was taking me forever was finally coming to an end. So one day I was just sitting here stitching toward the end. This was last November. And the word sampler symposium popped into my head. And I thought, okay. I literally put down my stitching, picked up my laptop, and Googled sampler symposium. The first thing that popped up was the Attic Needlework Sampler Symposium registration information. And their registration was opening the next Monday. This was on a Thursday or Friday. Their registration was opening on Monday. I took that as a big sign. Okay, I have to go. I have to make this happen. I read through it and I was like, I didn't recognize any of the names or anything, but I'm like, samplers, needlework, I need to be there. So I registered. I got in. As you'll know, for anybody who was there, the registration took a little while. I thought at first I wasn't going, and then they came back and said, oh, yes, you're going. And I was like, yay. I didn't know what I was walking into. I just was going. I was going to show up and see what happened. So I went, which, a weekend in Arizona when you're coming from Wisconsin, that's not a bad thing in the middle of January. So I walked into the hotel on Friday morning or Friday afternoon and saw all these stitchers. And I was like, oh, my people. I'm back with my people. Dropped my bags in my room, took the shuttle to the attic, proceeded to be completely overwhelmed in a good way. But I also realized that this isn't the world I left behind 20 plus years ago. Things have changed a little bit. The first thing I did was go over to the table where they had the models for our projects displayed, and we could pick out the materials we wanted to, which project we were going to stitch. Okay, first thing, true story. After stitching a project that took me 25 years, I went, what's the smallest one? I want the smallest one. Because those others are really pretty, but give me the small one. And then as I'm looking at the materials, I'm like, okay, I recognize the silk floss. I know a Versois silk. Okay, what's a 103? I think the woman next to me thought I was nuts when I said that out loud. She's like, it's silk. Okay. I picked the Versois because I knew what that was. just the basic silk. No, actually, I picked the MPI silks. That's what it was. I didn't know what MPI silk was, but I recognized silk threads, and I'm like, okay, I'll go with that. Then I went over and started looking at fabric, and that was interesting. They had, so I'm looking at all the different fabrics and fabric counts for my particular project. And I'm like, wait a minute. They have 40 count fabric? Okay, I've stitched on 40 count silk gauze, not seen 40 count linen. Oh wait, they have 46 count linen. No, they have 56 count linen. Are these people insane? My mind was beginning to explode. Let's just put it that way. But I spent the next couple hours just, reveling and being in that atmosphere and enjoying all the samplers and the stitchery and kind of eavesdropping on other people chit-chatting. And again, just being in that atmosphere was wonderful. And eventually I got chatting with a woman named Rebecca, who became one of my buddies for the weekend. And she made the comment that, oh, I've seen a lot of famous Flosstubers at the hotel. And I looked at her and I said, what's Flosstube? She's like, it's on YouTube. It's YouTube for cross-stitchers. Never heard of it. You would think I'd been living in the box with my stash for the last 20 years. It was just, yeah. So I got my things. I picked out a couple other projects that looked fun and the materials for them. And I went back to the hotel and got settled in at my table with Rebecca and another Rebecca and some other wonderful ladies around me, and just started looking around. And I was like, oh my gosh, not just being in that atmosphere, but look at, everyone's got these cool lights that they're using for their stitching. Some people have these cool bags they're putting their stitching in. People have these fun little boxes they're putting their tools in. I'm like, I really want one of those. Just the amount that has changed. And what's new, what's different, what's the same in stitching. I don't feel like a lot's the same other than putting a needle and thread in fabric. That's about it. But anyway, and then talking to people and the lingo. People would say, what's your LNS? What's an LNS? I don't know. There was just so much new. It was such a amazing, eye-opening, and crazy experience. I guess I felt a little bit like cross between Rip Van Winkle and Alice in Wonderland all at the same time walking. And that was before the weekend even really got started. That was like Friday. Before even the teachers started. Oh, it was amazing. It was an amazing weekend. Let's just say I didn't wait for May for the mania to start. I was just gorging on everything, all the new information, everything. It could have been overwhelming. It just wasn't. It was just too heartwarming. It was too wonderful and making me so happy. I couldn't stand it. Anyway, by Saturday morning, I had a new project going on 38 count linen, which was the highest linen I had ever stitched on. I was buying new needlework tools I'd never heard of before online from my seat. Like I said, it was just an amazing weekend. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of the reawakening, if you will, for me, of my cross-stitch life. So here I am. I didn't know what Flosstube was 5 months ago, and now I'm here. So my understanding of Flosstube is I'm here to share with you what's going on in my stitching life. The other thing, though, I want to talk about in my Flosstube is to kind of open that discussion of what is new and what's changed and what's different, but also what's the same about stitching from what it was 30, 40 years ago to what it is now, because I just think it's kind of fun to kind of compare and contrast and see how things have grown and all of those kinds of things. So I'm going to start by talking about two things, or one thing really, that struck me in my weekend at the symposium, and since then in watching Flosstube and being on Instagram. Yes, I'm on Instagram now. You can find me at PS Stitching Studio on Instagram. The one thing, the sense of play in cross stitch, from what it was 20 plus years ago, in my opinion, and this is my experience, I can only speak from, but there was a little more sense of rigidity in stitching of here's the chart, you stitch the chart. This is what you do. And part of that's probably because I'm a rule follower, and I'm trying to break my habits. I'm trying not to follow the rules. But it was so fun. They were talking about color conversions. What's a color conversion? Okay, here's my first epic fail with the color conversion thing. So I'm at the attic on that Friday picking up stuff and just enjoying the atmosphere and looking at everything. And I saw a sampler that really just, stuck out to me and was like, oh, that's really pretty. I really want to stitch that. And it wasn't too big. So I found this. It's Mary Hart, my GGR samplers. And they had the model at the attic, and there was a little thing that said color conversion available. And I was like, what's a color conversion? I don't know. So I went and asked for it. But I said, I was a little overwhelmed. And so I had it, and I saw the flosses, and I looked at the flosses that the called for floss, and I just went, the called for flosses are right there. They're easy to find. I'm not going to overload any circuits by just going and getting those and stitching. I picked out fabric. I decided I'll go a little out of my comfort zone, so I went to a 38 count fabric. So here is my final stitch of Mary Hart. I used the called for flosses. I used 38 count Irish Coffee by Legacy Linen, and it's just really beautiful. I had so much fun. I started this Saturday morning before the symposium classes even started, and I just stitched it as it was charted, other than adding my initials down here on the bottom and the year. Oops, down here. There we are. So that was just a really fun stitch. It was really just to get me going, to get me back to get the juices flowing, to get everything rolling again. It was a really wonderful place to start. But it was an epic fail from the conversion side of things because, I didn't know what to do at that point. On the other hand, after I got home and was settling in and busy watching Flosstube and everything, I went one night. The idea of silks was on my mind. I'm like, I have silk somewhere in my stash. Somewhere in my stash, I have a whole box of silk floss that I know it's been there for 20 plus years. So I went to dig it out. Here it is. It's never even been opened. It's Kreinik Silk Heritage Collection. All these pretty little silks. I'm going to have to do something with them at some point. But while I was digging around for those, I came upon this other little kit. I'm going to take it out of the box here, little paper, so you can see it better. So there's the little kit. It had the Silk Mori, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, floss included. It was called Williamsburg Lady by Historic Stitches. If Historic Stitches, I don't know exactly who Historic Stitches is, but if you're still around, please reach out. Would love to say thank you for this adorable little chart. What really appealed to me, besides just practicing with silk, I'd stitched with silk before, but I thought I'm going to get back into it because that seems to be a big thing right now. This was a series that Kreinik did way back when that was called Remember the Ladies. And I was like, and they had a quote on the paperwork from Abigail Adams from a letter that she wrote to her husband, John, that basically was like, when you're putting all these laws in place and everything, remember the ladies. So I started stitching this, and this is where I'm going to play around a little bit. Not exactly a color conversion, but I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to change the chart. So my goal, I'll show you on the chart, on the stitch piece. Here we go. So I started stitching it on that Irish, I love that I love the Irish coffee linen, just saying. So yeah, I pulled it out. So my plan here is to lengthen it. I'm gonna bring it down instead of finishing the border, and I'm gonna put in Remember the Ladies, A. Adams, and give her some, call out her quote. So that's how I'm gonna change this. So I'm starting to learn to play with my stitching and have a little more fun and creativity with it than just stitching what the chart says. All right, so I'll talk a little more about color conversion and how I'm playing with that still, but that's sort of the topic. So each Flosstube, my goal is to sort of highlight one new thing I'm learning, one new lingo phrase I've learned, one new technique I've learned, something. There might be more than one because I've got so much going on. All right, so let me go ahead then, and I'm gonna skip to finishes and show you what I finished in the last couple of months since I got back into this. Before I show you the newest finishes though, I have to show you my big project, my 25-year project that I started in January of 2000. This is the Laura Standish sampler by the exemplary Joanna Harvey, who she charted this sampler from the original that's in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I've gotten to see the original at one point. The original is not very big. She stitched on very fine linen. It's probably like a 48 or 50 some count linen. I didn't have those at that time. We didn't, 20 some years ago, didn't have that. So this is on a bigger linen, and I honestly don't know if it's a 32 or a 36 count linen. But so it's a little bigger than the original. So I'm just gonna hold it up and kind of unroll it here for you and show it to you and hope you get to see the gist of it. It keeps going and going and going, and it's fabulous. The interesting technique in this, well, a few techniques in this sampler, see if I can get the whole bottom in there. Let me keep going. It's almost taller than I am. Okay, is that it? Yep, there you have the whole bottom. Okay, so several interesting techniques. One of the techniques in this is that it's stitched 3 over 3, which you might think is strange, but pretty soon your eyes adapt to the 3 over 3 stitching. There's a stitch at the top here that is called the Standish stitch. It's something that was unique to Laura Standish's sampler. There is a lot of double running stitch in this, which I love. Double running stitch. Double running stitch is so fun because it goes so fast, and once your brain gets used to it, you just whip along. There are other stitches. There's long arm cross, there's marking cross, there's a bunch of different stitches. I don't even remember them all. But it was an amazing stitch, and I am so glad I did it. It kept me connected to stitching for all those years. But I'm glad to move on, and I will be really happy when this is framed and on my wall. All right, so let's talk about the new stuff, the 2025 and beyond stitching. So I said I was ordering tools from my seat at the symposium. Well, one of the things I ordered right away was, I got on the Kohana website. Somebody near me had the little tiny mini Kohana scissors, which are so fun. I have a pair of those now. But before I even got those, I got online and they had a New Year's 2025 kit, special kit of things, with a cool pair with scissors and a needle threader and a little bag, and included in it was a chart. And so here was the chart that I stitched that came in their kit. They sent a little hoop. It was meant, you can see I hooped because it was meant. I'm not going to finish it in a hoop. I think I will probably finish it as a round, maybe a round box top or around something, or maybe I'll frame it. I haven't decided yet. This is Ume Blossoms. I stitched it on 32 count pyrite from Cedar Ribbon. It came with Ada. One thing I don't do anymore is stitch on Ada. It's just not my favorite. I really love stitching on linen, and I'm having fun exploring the different linens that are out. So you can see this is a little bit mottled linen. It doesn't it's not super modeled. I think it's showing up pretty well, true to color in this picture. Yeah, so I just stitched with the threads that came with it. I had cotton floss of some sort, and enjoyed that. So that was my little ume blossoms. So that was that one. I stitched, again, I'm stitching small. I'm sure I will end up getting it over my head at some point and picking out something bigger. But for now, I'm trying to keep myself reined in and stick to things I can actually finish in a reasonable amount of time. All right, so new thing to me this year was market. That was fun. That was fun to do, fun to look at. I did manage to restrain myself for the most part. But I really should say one thing about Instagram that has been really fun is learning about the animal crackers. The animal crackers are adorable. So as you can see, Lily, I have a thing for frogs anyway. So when Lily came out, Lily was, I had to have her. I stitched her with the called 4 threads on 36 count Mayflower linen by Fox and Rabbit. Again, I'm kind of having fun playing with some different linens. She's just adorable. Again, I just stitched her as is. I'll get around to tweaking things. Right now, I'm just trying to get back into stitching. And I'm going to finish her as a stand-up of some sort. There's some really good tutorials out there on Instagram and Flosstube for how to finish those. So I will be doing that. So those are the couple of the finishes I've done. I think they're probably the only finishes I've done in the last couple months, but I have started other things. All right, another one from Market that really caught my eye, and I restrained myself for a little bit, and then after a month I was like, okay, no, I really need that. And that is Pear Fair by October House. That's right, October House. The colors are so soft and pretty, and I couldn't get it out of my head. So here I am, and it's getting close to being done, actually. Oops, let me put that there. It's getting close to being done. I've started adding the pink. I did that last night. You can see I start my stitching a lot with away knots. We all have different stitching techniques. Sometimes I stitch with a hoop or with Q-snaps. Depending, I tend to like my stitches not covered by something. So I stitch in hand a lot too for bigger projects or stretcher bars. It depends on the project. Everything's a little different. What I feel like that day, that's a lot of it too. All right, so that was another start. And then playing, that sense of play. So playing, two big things for me has been trying to play and trying to see how others are playing, what that means for them, and this whole idea of color conversions. So one person I've enjoyed watching on Flosstube, and who was one of the presenters at the symposium, was Katie Strachan. I've just enjoyed watching. I've learned so much from her and from many of you Flosstubers. But I've just enjoyed in the sense of play, the sense of color, and enjoyed watching her conversions for different things. So one of the things that came up on Instagram was a summer stitch along. I think that's what it's called. And the idea was to start something on Memorial Day and finish it on Labor Day and have a summer theme, or maybe it was even a patriotic theme. I think it was maybe a patriotic theme. I can't remember. So what I chose for that was to do Flag Thief. Here's the Flag Thief by Plum Street, which is really, really cute. But in that sense of trying new things, I am stitching Katie's version of Flag Thief. And for me, the big change here is using 103s. Those 103s that I had never heard of 5 months ago. Yeah. Gobelins I never heard of 5 months ago. Yeah. I'm stitching with them. And it's really fun. So I started on Memorial Day. That was and I've done a little bit. because I've had other things I've been working on too. But again, this one I'm stitching in hand because that really is my preferred method, but I'm having fun. You can see I don't really have a specific start spot. Sometimes I start in the middle. This one I start on the upper left because it was easy. And then I just kind of skip around depending on my mood that day. This is also Legacy Linen 38 count, just a different color. I can't remember the specific color. It came with a kit from Katie. So thank you, Katie, for that and for all your teaching. Yeah, thank you. Really, I'm just going to say thank you now before I forget, because I might. Thank you to all of you stitchers out there who have just been going and doing new things and trying new things and bringing in new materials and experimenting with color and with overdying and fabrics, and just it's been so fun to get back into it. The biggest regret that I have is not being able to have met Jean Lee. I really feel like I owe a lot to her for putting on the Sampler Symposium and for clearly being a guiding light all these years. And she passed away soon after the symposium. So I'm really disappointed that I did not get to meet her. She was there, but obviously she was ill, and I didn't even try to. I didn't try to get near her, and there was just so much going on. But I just feel like I said, I feel grateful to her. I feel grateful to the ladies of the attic who are carrying on her store and her traditions, and to everybody else who has been influenced by her for sharing all of those things. So yeah, I don't feel like I would have gotten, I don't know, I just feel really blessed by her and all of her work. So just getting that out. Okay, and then one last thing, one of the other things I got to do this spring was to go, where'd it go? If I can find it. Here we are. To go to the Painted Thread exhibit at the Detroit Art Museum. Fortunately, well, for whatever, my daughter goes to school in Michigan, not too far from Detroit. So this spring, when she was time for her to come home for the summer, I went over, and while I was there that weekend, I made a point of getting away and getting over to see the exhibit. And it was, unfortunately, it did close, I believe, yesterday. But it was, again, such an amazing, it was an amazing exhibit, amazing privilege to be in the rooms with all of these gorgeous samplers. The techniques and the overwhelming beauty. I mean, the thing that, I can't get over with stitching back then and today is the overall beauty of what can be done with a needle and thread and fabric. It's something that speaks to my heart, obviously, and it's nice to be back in with a community who also understands that sense of beauty and is working to carry it on, whether it's through samplers or basic cross stitch or really super fancy embroidery, whatever it is. It's that thing that binds us all together. So anyway, I'm glad to be back. And thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening to me. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking it out. I plan to be back. I plan to come back. And again, I'm going to be highlighting not just what I've been working on in stitching, but also trying to highlight some of the things that are new and different and interesting. And again, also the same. And one of the things that is the same from stitchers long ago to stitchers today is how just welcoming and friendly and happy I see you all. So thank you. Have a good day.